Welcome to the deep dive. We take stacks of information, articles, all sorts of sources, and really boil it down to what you need to know.
That's the idea.
And today we're zoning in on cybersecurity, specifically how to talk about it, how to manage risk, and, well, the changing world of the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer.
Right. And our learner gave us some great stuff to work with, articles on talking to the board, CISO communication tips, deep dives into the NIST framework, even a Reddit AMA with CISOs, real ground-level insights there.
Yeah, a really good mix.
So our mission today, for you listening, is to pull all that together, synthesize it into something useful, actionable insights to help you understand what's happening in cyber leadership right now.
Okay, let's get right into it. But hang on, first, a quick shout out and thank you to our sponsor, www.cisomarketplace.services.
Great folks over there.
All right, so communication. That seems to be like hurdle number one for CISOs, right? Talking cyber risk to execs, to the board people who aren't tech experts.
Oh, absolutely. It came up again and again in the sources. And it's not just different words they use, it's deeper.
How so?
It's often about fundamentally different priorities. You know, execs might be thinking revenue, growth, new features. Security is thinking, well, confidentiality, integrity, availability, keeping things safe.
Right. Different worlds sometimes.
So the trick, according to the sources, is framing security in terms they care about. Business terms.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Like, don't talk about the specific firewall rule. Talk about protecting customer data or preventing downtime that costs money.
Exactly. The GDT guide we looked at really hit this hard. Be direct. Be clear.
It even gave examples, didn't it? Like conversation starters.
Yeah. Things like, okay, this is just an update for awareness, or crucially, here's a concern and we need a decision from you, or I need this specific thing to handle this risk. Very direct.
That's through the noise, I suppose.
Definitely. And the sources all stressed connecting the tech stuff, the vulnerabilities, the threats to real business consequences. Money. Yeah. Financial impact.
Reputation damage.
Huge. And operational disruption. Can we still actually do business if this happens?
It's translating geek speak into business speak.
That's a good way to put it. And focusing on the risks that genuinely threaten the company's big picture goals.
You'll get lost in the weeds on minor stuff.
Right. If it doesn't hit a strategic objective, maybe it's not a board-level conversation.
Okay. What about metrics? Measuring security effectiveness, that sounds tough.
It is. The GDT piece pointed out there's no, single universal set of metrics everyone agrees on.
Which makes showing ROI hard, I bet.
Exactly. Proving the value of spending on security can be a real uphill battle sometimes.
So how do you tackle that? Do the sources offer solutions?
Yeah, the suggestion was to tie your security program's goals, its objectives, its outcomes, directly back to those business risks we talked about.
Ah, okay. So we implemented this control, which reduces the risk of this business impact by X%.
Something like that. And then track it. Measure performance, track the resources. It shifts security from just being a cost to being a strategic thing, an investment.
And looking outwards helps too. I think one article mentioned using examples.
Yeah, the reporting cybersecurity to boards piece. It said, talking about what happened at other companies, maybe competitors or similar organizations.
Look what happened to them.
We don't want that happening here. It makes the threat feel much more real, more tangible for the board.
Makes sense. That article also really hammered home that cyber risk isn't just an IT problem anymore.
No, it's a core business risk, full stop.
And it needs board-level attention. But apparently, many directors feel they don't get good reports.
That's what the data suggests. A big gap and a big opportunity for CISOs to step up and provide what's needed.
So what is needed? What should that reporting look like?
High level, holistic, focused on the big picture, the overall risk posture, the health of the program.
The example dashboard topics seemed helpful. Risk status, types of incidents, third-party stuff.
Key insights, project updates. Yeah, things that give them a real snapshot without drowning them in technical detail.
And there was another piece, CISOs. Welcome to the boardroom. That had a template.
Yeah, a specific presentation template for that first board meeting or regular updates. It covered things like why InfoSec matters to the board.
Setting the stage.
An overview of how risk is managed, the framework being used like NIST, and the strategic plan, the roadmap.
And framing it all in terms of those big risk categories the board already thinks about: strategic, operational.
Financial, reputational,
Yeah.
Exactly. Speaking their language.
It also mentioned those NACD principles, National Association of Corporate Directors.
Right. Reinforcing that the board has a duty here. Oversight responsibility. It all comes back to translating tech risk into business risk, quantifying it where possible.
In dollar terms.
Ideally, yeah. Or operational impact. Using metrics like how much faster you respond to incidents now, or what percentage of critical systems are protected.
Tying it back to business goals.
Always. The BitSite article had that great line, the CISO needs to be the chief storytelling officer.
Huh. I like that. Telling the story of risk and protection.
Exactly. You need to build that narrative effectively for a non-technical audience.
Okay, that's communication. Let's shift gears a bit to the CISO role itself. It sounds like it's getting bigger, more complex.
Definitely. The sources paint a picture of increasing demands. It's not just tech know-how anymore.
You need strategic thinking, regulatory awareness.
Absolutely. And relationship building. That came through really strongly.
Across the whole company.
Yeah. With other C-level execs, obviously, but also IT teams, HR, marketing, legal, everyone. Security has to be a team sport.
A shared responsibility.
That's the goal. And that collaboration piece, especially with the legal team, the general counsel, that's becoming critical.
Why is that? More regulations.
That's a big driver. Regulations like NIS2, DORA in Europe, they're putting more pressure on boards, more accountability. So CISOs and GCs have to work together closely.
Makes sense. Building trust there is key then.
For sure. Some organizations are even embedding legal folks directly into the security team to make that collaboration seamless.
Interesting. And the CISO is getting pulled into bigger strategic things too, like M&A.
Yeah, cyber due diligence during mergers and acquisitions is huge now. You don't want to accidentally buy a massive security liability.
Right. But with all these growing responsibilities comes the challenge of getting resources.
Right.
The budget battle.
Ah, yes. The age-old problem. The Reddit AMA had some very candid comments on this.
Security still seen as just overhead sometimes.
Often, yeah. Not a strategic partner. So justifying the budget, proving the value, it's constant.
How do you do that effectively? What the sources suggest?
Showing ROI is key. The Justify Your Budget article talked about focusing on things like automation.
How does that help?
Well, if you automate tasks in the Security Operations Center, like sorting through alerts.
It saves time, reduces operational costs.
Exactly. You can point to tangible savings, real efficiencies. That makes the investment case stronger.
And that quantification idea came up again. CRQ.
Cyber risk quantification. Yeah, the cover material discussed this. It's about putting numbers, probabilities, potential financial losses on specific attack scenarios.
So you could say, this threat vector has an X% chance of costing us Y million dollars.
Pretty much. That kind of data is gold for budget talks. It helps define your risk appetite too. How much risk are you willing to accept? And even helps negotiate better cyber insurance terms.
And comparing yourself to others, benchmarking.
Also very useful. Cover and BitSite mentioned this. Showing how your security posture stacks up against industry peers gives objective context.
Moves it away from just opinion.
Right. Takes some of the guesswork out. It helps combat that IT is just a money pit mentality that some CISOs mentioned on Reddit.
Yeah.
By clearly showing, here's the potential damage, the financial hit we could take, and here's the cost of the preventative measure. It becomes a business decision about risk reduction.
But Reddit threads also touched on actually becoming a CISO. It sounds like a mix of tech background and advisory experience is good.
That seems to be a common path. Deep tech knowledge plus experience advising senior leaders. But there's that catch-22.
Need CISO experience to get a CISO job.
Exactly. So the advice was, maybe look at smaller companies for your first CISO role. Or consider fractional CISO work, vCISO services, to build that leadership track record.
Good practical tips. And understanding the business itself is crucial. Right.
Absolutely critical. You have to understand how the business operates to understand how cyber risk actually impacts it.
Okay, let's pivot to some of the foundations. Frameworks and concepts. NIST CSF came up a lot.
Yeah, the NIST cybersecurity framework, version 2.0 is the latest. It's really positioned as a guide for pretty much any organization, any size, to manage cyber risk better.
It's not just a checklist, though.
No, definitely not. It's flexible, adaptable. You tailor it to your own situation, your own risks.
And it has those core functions. Govern, identify,
protect, detect, respond, and recover. Yeah, it gives a nice logical structure for thinking about the whole cybersecurity lifecycle.
The sources seem to zoom in on protect a bit. Access control, training.
Data security, patching, protective tech. Yeah, all those core preventative measures. fall under protect.
And speaking of patching,
Yeah.
that patching cadence metric seems really important.
Oh, yeah. The BitSight data was stark. Organizations with poor patching grades D or F were 7 times more likely to get hit with ransomware than those with an A grade.
Wow. 7 times. That really highlights the basics.
It really does. Basic hygiene matters a lot.
The CSF also has tiers, like levels of maturity.
Right. Partial, risk-informed, repeatable, adaptive. It's a way to describe how sophisticated and integrated your cybersecurity practices are. And then you have profiles.
Which describe where you are now and where you want to be.
Exactly. Your current state versus your target state mapped against the CSF outcomes.
And it's not just about stopping bad things. NIST said it helps seize opportunities too.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. A strong security posture can actually enable the business. It might give you the confidence to launch new digital products or enter new markets you wouldn't otherwise.
Makes sense. Security as an enabler, not just a blocker.
That's the ideal. The framework also stresses integrating cyber risk into the bigger picture overall enterprise risk management. That's part of the govern function.
And foundational stuff like knowing what assets you have.
Asset management, yes. Critical. You can't protect what you don't know you have.
And managing identity, authentication, access control.
Absolutely fundamental. PRAA in NIST terms. Who gets access to what, and how do you verify it's really them?
MFA came up in the Reddit AMA too. Multi-factor authentication.
Still one of the single most effective controls against many attacks, though they acknowledged you have to balance it, with user friction sometimes.
Right. Can't make it impossible for people to do their jobs.
It's always a balance.
Okay, so pulling all this together, what's the core advice for our learner, for you listening?
Well, number one, I'd say is really practice that translation skill. Tech details into simple business-focused language.
Focus on the so what, the impact.
Exactly. The tips for explaining article really emphasize that. And don't be afraid to use visuals, diagrams, models that can help bridge that understanding gap.
And really know the business you're protecting. Align security with those business goals.
Crucial. The compliance piece hammered that home. Understand the context.
Explore the NIST CSF resources online too.
Definitely. There's a lot out there to help you implement it effectively. NIST links to many tools and examples.
And finally, build bridges.
Yes. Build those relationships across teams. Foster communication. Create that shared sense of responsibility for security. It's foundational.
It really sounds like being successful in cyber leadership today takes this multifaceted skill set, tech jobs, communication skills, business smarts, collaboration.
That's a demanding role for sure.
And before we wrap up, let's give one more thank you to our sponsor, www.cisomarketplace.services, for helping make this deep dive possible.
Absolutely.
So quick recap for you, our learner. Key takeaways.
Okay. 1, communication is king, especially talking business language to leaders. 2, the CSO role is evolving. Fast needs strategic thinking, collaboration. 3, align security with business goals. Show the ROI, quantify risk to get resources. 4, frameworks like NIST CSF are invaluable tools.
Got it. And here's something to chew on as we finish. Technology is everywhere now, right? And every part of business, every part of life.
Increasingly so.
So how do we stop treating cybersecurity like this separate thing over in the corner and instead really weave a security-first mindset into everything we do at every level, from the board down to every single employee?
That's a big question, moving from a function to a fundamental mindset.
Something to think about.
Yeah.
We really encourage you to go back to the sources, think about how these ideas apply to your world.